and be wild.
Hey, hey now, take a second. Not a quick second. Not the kind of second where you're still scrolling, still half listening, still somewhere else. No, take a real second. Let your shoulders drop, let your breath settle, let your mind come into the room. Because what we're about to talk about today, it's not surface level, it's not background noise, it's not something you just play and forget. This is one of those conversations that if you let it, will follow you. This is why I make music. I'm your host, Willa May, DJ Warm Cookies, and today we're stepping into something that sounds simple, almost too simple, but underneath it, it explains more than most people realize. This episode is called Structure Over Chaos. And right away, before we go any further, I want to shift something in your thinking, because most people hear those two words, structure and chaos, and they immediately put them on opposite sides. Structure, good, chaos, bad. Structure, calm, chaos, problem. Structure is what we want. Chaos is what we try to escape. But that framing is incomplete. Because chaos is not the enemy. Chaos is the environment. It's the default setting of existence. It's what life feels like before you organize it. And if you really sit with that for a moment, you start to realize something. Most people are not living structured lives. They're living reactive lives. And there's a difference. A structured life is intentional. A reactive life is responsive. And most of us, whether we admit it or not, are responding all day long. We wake up, not because we're aligned with some deep internal rhythm, but because something external demands it. An alarm, a responsibility, a schedule. We check our phones. Before we check our thoughts, we respond to messages before we respond to ourselves. We move from one obligation to the next interruption, to the next adjustment, to the next demand. And somewhere in between all of that, we try to find space to be who we think we are. That's not structure, that's navigation, that's survival, that's managing the incoming, not designing the outcome. And there's nothing wrong with that. Let's be clear. There is nothing wrong with that. Life requires reaction. Things happen. People need you. Situations shift. Energy changes. You cannot control everything. But here's where it gets interesting. Because even though we live like that, most people will still say, I just want things to be more organized. I just want things to make more sense. I just want a little more control. I just want peace. And what they're really saying is, I want structure. But structure is not something that appears. It's something that is built, and building it requires something most people try to avoid. You have to sit inside the chaos long enough to understand it. Now this is where creators separate themselves. Because creators don't just experience chaos, they study it, they listen to it, they sit in the middle of uncertainty, and instead of running from it, they start asking questions. What is this feeling? What is this pattern? What is this rhythm? What is this thought trying to become? They don't always have answers. In fact, most of the time, they don't. But they stay with it anyway. And that is where everything begins to change. Because the moment you stop trying to escape the chaos and start trying to understand it, you've already taken the first step towards structure. And that step, it's quiet, there's no applause, no recognition, no validation. Nobody's standing over your shoulder saying, yeah, this is it, keep going, it's just you. And something that doesn't make sense yet. And if you stay there long enough, if you listen closely enough, if you give it just a little bit of your attention, patterns start to appear, not fully formed, not polished, not ready. But something starts to take shape. And this is where most people walk away, because it's uncomfortable, it's unclear, it doesn't reward you immediately. There's no guarantee that what you're working on will turn into anything. So the easier choice is to go back to reacting, go back to scrolling, go back to consuming, go back to doing what's already defined. But creators do something different. They lean in, they stay a little longer, they give that undefined space just enough attention to begin organizing it. And it doesn't happen all at once, it happens in fragments. A thought becomes a sentence becomes a concept becomes a direction becomes a decision. And suddenly, what once felt like noise starts to feel like possibility. That's the moment, that quiet, almost invisible moment, where chaos begins to shift into something else. Not finished, not complete, but no longer random. And that's what we're talking about today. Not perfection, not control, not some ideal version of life, where everything is mapped out and nothing goes wrong. We're talking about the process of taking what is unclear and making it usable. We're talking about the discipline of shaping what you don't fully understand yet. We're talking about the decision to build structure in a world that will always offer you chaos. Because chaos will always be there. Life will always move. Things will always shift. People will always change. There will always be more variables than you can control. But structure is what you create. Inside of that, and once you understand that, once you really understand that, you stop waiting for things to calm down. Before you begin, you stop saying, I'll get serious when everything settles. Because you realize it doesn't settle, it flows. And your job, if you choose it, is to build something steady in the middle of that movement, not outside of it, inside of it. And if you can do that, even a little bit, you're not just living anymore, you're creating. Let's go deeper.
I know something you don't know. Heightened awareness, she told me to wear this. Balance of the body, got me looking like a hottie. Intuition on red alert, into reception. Heart rate racing, hunger setting in. What am I tasting? Spiritual connection, like the bride and bride. Wedding party logic, side-eye rejection. Tell me what your function. Analysis confirmed you want some of this, but you gotta wait your turn. Something like a smart bomb. Nothing like the thrill of the kill. Sense of free, no trail. Dirty intelligence, a seventh sense. No evidence, no fingerprints. Dirty intelligence. Tell me how'd you jump to conclusions? I know 1 through 5 and the 6 is an illusion. I see dead people, I do, but not to alarm you. Didn't wanna panic you. tell. Cards, I read them well. Maybe I'll invite you to the opening night. It's a gala for all times, guaranteed to bend your mind. You can come, but it's serious. Not like you're not curious, but we'll see. We'll see. I know something, a little something. I know something. I know something like a smart bomb. Nothing like the thrill of the kill. Sense of freedom, chill, dirt intelligence. No 7 cents. No evidence, no fingerprints. Dirty intelligence. They said it starts with a feeling and a pattern and coincidence dressed up as coincidence. A look held half a second too long, a sentence that lands before the question is finished. Breadcrumbs, now breadcrumbs, pieces of the puzzle laid on purpose. Easter eggs laid you hope you don't fall down the rabbit hole. Invited, you invented numbers repeating, symbols misbehaving, static whispering your government name. Science calls it noise, faith calls it faith, an anomaly, cosmic tax. They said relax, they said it's nothing. They said everyone thinks this way sometimes, but sometimes stars lining up, satellites blinking in rhythm, dreams updated every night. History editing itself quietly, you don't go crazy all at once, you go curious first. Funny thing about truth, it doesn't seem to hurt. It waits and waits, and then one day you're not asking if anymore. You're asking how long has this been running? And that's when it stops sounding crazy. I know something you don't know. I know something you don't know. 7 cents, dirty intelligence. 7 something, a little something. I know something. Something like a smart bomb. Nothing like the thrill of the kill. Sense of free, no chill. Dirty intelligence. 7 cents. No evidence. No fingerprints. Hiding awareness. She told me to wear this. Balance of the body. Mind already left this. I know something you don't know. I know something you don't know.
Now, let's move a little closer to the beginning. Not the version that gets posted, shared, liked, validated. When it looks like nothing, when it feels like nothing, when even you, the person holding the idea, aren't completely sure what it is yet. Because that's where everything actually starts. Not with clarity, not with confidence, but with something small, something quiet, something easy to overlook. A scribble, that's the word. A scribble on a piece of paper, a note in your phone, a voice memo you almost didn't save, a title with no meaning yet attached to it, a thought that passed through your mind and almost kept going. That's the beginning. And if we're being honest, most beginnings don't look important. They don't look powerful. They don't look valuable. They don't look like something that's going to turn into anything real. They look unimpressive. And that's where the misunderstanding starts. Because people, not just other people, even you sometimes, you've been trained to respect finished things. The completed song, the final product, the polished image, the released project, the successful outcome. That's what gets attention. That's what gets celebrated. Where it's still forming, where it's still unclear, where it doesn't yet justify itself. And that's the dangerous part. Because if you don't learn how to respect that stage, you'll abandon ideas too early. You'll delete things that needed time. You'll ignore thoughts that needed space. You'll walk away from something just because it didn't look like anything yet. And that's how potential disappears. Quietly, not in failure, but in dismissal. Because it didn't look finished fast enough. Now let's slow this down even more. Picture this. You're sitting somewhere. Could be your studio, your room, your car, late at night, early in the morning, and something crosses your mind. Not fully formed, not organized. Just a feeling with a little bit of shape. You don't know if it's a song yet. You don't know if it's a concept. You don't know if it's worth anything. But it's there, and in that moment, not a dramatic decision, a quiet one. Do I catch this, or do I let it pass? That's it. They don't always announce themselves. Sometimes they whisper. Maybe it's just a rhythm tapped out on your leg. And when you look at it, it still doesn't look like much. It's not impressive. You've just done something important. You've taken something from your mind and given it a place to exist. That's the first step of structure, not completion, just containment. You've stopped it from disappearing. Now here's where it gets real. Because once you've captured it, you're left with something that's incomplete. And incomplete things can feel uncomfortable. They sit there, they don't resolve, they don't explain themselves, they just exist. In this half state, between nothing and something. And that's where patience comes in. Because now, you have to decide, am I willing to sit with this long enough to see what it becomes? Or do I need it to make sense immediately? Most people need it to make sense immediately. And if it doesn't, they move on. But creators develop a different kind of relationship. With that unfinished space, they revisit it. They look at it again, later, from a different angle, in a different mood, with a different level of energy. And sometimes, something clicks. That one line turns into two. That rhythm connects to a melody. That idea starts suggesting direction. And now, it's not just a scribble anymore. It's a seed, still small, still fragile, but alive. And seeds don't look like the thing they're going to become. A tree doesn't look like a tree. When it's a seed, a song doesn't sound like a song. When it's an idea, a business doesn't look like a business. When it's a thought, but the potential is already there. The structure just hasn't been built yet. Now let's connect this back to something bigger. Everything you see in the world, everything that feels solid, everything that feels established, everything that feels like it makes sense, started like this, messy, unclear, unimpressive. Before the blueprint, there was a sketch. Before the final mix, there was a rough take. Before the brand, there was a name someone wasn't sure about. Before the system, there was a thought someone decided to follow. And that's the part that gets erased. When we only look at outcomes, we forget that everything we admire once looked like nothing. And that's why this matters so much. Because if you're sitting on ideas right now, half-finished songs, random melodies, unfinished projects, notes that don't connect yet, you're not behind, you're not lost, you're not doing it wrong. You're in the beginning, and the beginning like it's supposed to be the final stage. You stop expecting clarity. Before you've done the work of building it, you stop throwing away what just needed time, and instead, you start doing something different. You start honoring the process. You start protecting your ideas. You start giving space to things that haven't proven themselves yet, because you realize not everything valuable looks valuable at the start. And if you can hold that understanding, if you can stay with something just a little longer than most people would, you give yourself access to something deeper. You give yourself access to transformation, because now you're not just having ideas, you're developing them. You're not just thinking, you're building, and that is where chaos starts becoming structure. Now let's take that one step further, because what happens next is where things really begin to separate.
My square, two shapes that define how I think and how I break. I trace my DNA, map the code in my stare. Origins clean, proof I've been aware. Therapist signed off, said truth is your addiction. You narrate your madness like it's non-fiction. If too many listen, it might be the end of me. Cause honesty cuts deeper than empathy. My circle, my square, balance of soul and reason in there. My circle, my square, shape for the mind that refuses repair. The circle's divine, infinite, ethereal light. Square's the frame that keeps day from night. Da Vinci drew the body between the two. That's the math of me, that's the art I pursue. I'm geometry and therapy, alchemy of clarity, sculpt insanity and symmetry. My circle, my square, spirit meets science somewhere. In the square and on my circle lies a cure for the noise, where ego meets void and chaos finds poise. Friends and family, no squares in my circle. Yeah, my circle got corners, emotional hurdles. My circle, my square, cosmic divine, but I'm still aware. My circle, my square is the shape of a mind learning self-care. My circle, my square, two shapes that define how I think and how I break. I trace my DNA, map the code in my stare. Origins clean, proof I've been aware. Therapist signed off, truth is my addiction. I narrate my madness like non-fiction. If too many listen, it might be the end of me. Honesty cuts deeper than empathy. My circle, my square, balance of soul and reason in there. Square in my circle, ego meets void, chaos finds poise. No squares in my circle, but my circle got corners. My circle, my square, I'm inside my own mind somewhere. Yeah, mind check, soul out of therapist nodding, scribbling trauma like a prophet of logic. Said I'm fine, but the tone sound toxic. Orbiting patterns, still boxing my optics. Circles divine, square, keep me grounded. Equations of self, where truth surrounded. Mirror talk, queen of the mind, I found it. Dreams feel loud, but the world stays sounded. I rewrite pain in symmetrical lines. Cross between math and spiritual science. Told my reflection, you late but on time. Hard like a diamond, pressure refined. Sanity bending, ego and spin. Balance my chaos with discipline. Call it geometry, therapy within. Perfectly flawed, yet built to win. I'm the thesis, problem of proof. Talk my truth in a padded booth. Every scar is exhibit A. Diagram pain in an abstract way. Circle keep me open, square keep me fair. Both remind me that I'm still there. Therapy session, turn confession to art. Ink bleed visions from the cracks in my heart. No degree for the soul's equation, but I'm passing class through meditation. Data of emotion, raw encrypted. Ain't so clean, it came much script. They used to mask with a perfect grin. Now I grin, cause the mask gave in. Square up thoughts, circle my fears. Polish mistakes like chandeliers. The higher I climb, the louder it hums. Growth got rhythm and peace got drums. Circles, rotation, constant spin. Every revolution rewires within. Blueprint redrawn, healed, repair. I'm my own architect of hell. My circle, my square. Still learning self-care. Circle, my square. Still learning self-care. Circle, my square. Circle, my square. Ooh, touche. Of a mind, learning self-care.
Now, we've talked about the beginning, the scribble, the moment where something almost becomes something. But let's take it a step further, because there's a misunderstanding about what creation actually is. People say things like, making something out of nothing. And it sounds powerful, it sounds mystical, it sounds like magic. But if we're being honest, that's not exactly what's happening. You're not creating from nothing. You're creating from something you can't yet explain. And what you're really doing is translating. That's the word. You're translating. You're taking something internal, something invisible, something that doesn't have a clear shape yet. And you're trying to give it a form that someone else can experience. That's not easy, because what's inside doesn't arrive in clean language. It doesn't show up organized. It shows up as feeling. It shows up as fragments. It shows up as emotion without instruction, as energy without direction, as instinct without explanation. And your job as a creator is to sit with that long enough to figure out what it's trying to become. That's translation. Now think about that carefully, because translation is never perfect. Even when you translate from one spoken language to another, there are things that get lost. Tone, nuance, cultural meaning, emotion behind the words. You can say the same sentence in two different languages, and it won't land the same way. So imagine trying to translate from something even less defined, from a feeling to a sound, from a thought to a lyric, from a memory to a melody, from an idea to a structure that can be repeated, shared, understood, felt by someone else. That's what you're doing, and that's why it's hard, because you're not just choosing notes. You're choosing meaning. You're not just writing words. You're shaping interpretation. You're not just building a track. You're building an experience. And here's where it gets deeper. Sometimes you don't fully understand what you're creating until after you've created it. That's real. You finish something. You step back. You listen to it again. And you hear something in it that you didn't even realize was there. That's because part of the process is subconscious. You're pulling from things you've lived, things you've heard, things you've felt, things you haven't even processed yet, and they come out through the work. Execution is clear. Execution is direct. Execution is measurable. It's sometimes confusing, even to the person doing it. But that doesn't make it random. It makes it human. Now let's bring this into focus with something simple. A song. Think about what it actually takes to bring a song into existence. You start with something small, Maybe it's a chord progression. Maybe it's a rhythm. Maybe it's a line. Maybe it's just a mood. And from that, you begin making decisions. You decide the tempo. You decide the key. You decide the energy. You decide what belongs and what doesn't. But underneath all of that, you're asking a deeper question. Even if you don't say it out loud, what is this trying to say? Not just lyrically, emotionally. What is the feeling here? Is it tension? Is it release? Is it reflection? Is it confidence? Is it uncertainty? Is it longing? Because whatever that feeling is, that's what you're translating. And everything you choose after that is in service of that translation. The drums support the feeling. The chords support the feeling. The melody carries the feeling. The lyrics clarify the feeling. And if you do it well, someone who has never met you, never seen you, never lived your life, can press play and feel something real. That's not small. That's not casual. That's a transfer of experience from you to them, without explanation, without conversation, without context. That's power. Now let's expand that beyond music, because this applies to everything. A painting is not just color on a surface, it's perspective, translated into form. A photograph is not just an image, it's a moment, captured and framed, so it can exist outside of time. A business is not just a way to make money, it's a set of ideas, organized into something functional. A brand is not just a logo, it's a feeling made consistent. Everything that exists around us, that feels intentional, that feels designed, that feels complete, is the result of someone taking something internal and translating it into something external. And here's where it all connects back to structure, because translation without structure falls apart. If your thoughts stay scattered, they don't communicate. If your ideas stay loose, they don't land. If your emotions stay unshaped, they don't transfer. Structure is what allows translation to work. It's what turns expression into communication. It's what turns feeling into something someone else can receive. Without structure, it stays inside you. With structure, it moves, it travels, it reaches. And that's the goal. Not just to create something for yourself, but to create something that can exist beyond you. That's when it becomes real. That's when it becomes usable. That's when it becomes something that has the potential to connect. And connection is the whole point. So when you sit down to create, you're not just making something, you're translating something. And every decision you make is part of that translation, which means every decision matters, even the small ones, especially the small ones, because that's where clarity is built, piece by piece, choice by choice, until what once felt like chaos starts to sound like intention. Now let's take that even further, because once something begins to take form, the world starts to respond to it, and that response doesn't always look the way you expect.
Yeah. Another day in paradise. Did you miss your hug today? Elevator stuck between floors anyway. Coffee pot empty, no caramel latte. Phone full of commercials. house, there's not one rhyme to say. This looks back like, yeah, it's yours. Paper stacks, screaming corporate folklore. Maybe today's the day, it's cool to cry. Schedule says no, wipe your eye, but no. Can't let it crack you. Thinking I'll clock you as a punk ass excuse. You scan the room, drag out the chair, sit down slow like somebody cares, but nobody's clapping. Clap, silence. Shouldn't there be praise for doing my job? Nobody's clapping. No confetti rain. I know I should ask for a raise for doing my job. Doing my job. Doing my job. My job. My job. My job. My gig. My work. Call it what you wanna call it. I show up most of the time. Corporate loves my honesty. Yeah, I get paid. Checklist fine. For real though, I'm underqualified when chaos hits. I take a lap. Walk the building. Dodge the trap. Don't think I'm not a team player. I just got exits and alternate layers. This hustle got pockets and folds. Origami dreams getting old. Now, don't let it break you. They might confuse you for disposable. Eyes on the clock, seat goes back. You nod like you planned all that, but nobody's clapping. Where's the applause? Shouldn't there be praise? Doing my job, nobody's clapping. Not even a nod. I know I should ask for a raise for doing my job, doing my job, doing my job. My job, my job, my job. Water cooler talk, oh I mastered that. What you do last night? Yeah, I dance around facts. Me, I did nothing, went straight to bed. Still woke up late, hit breakfast instead. Could have been on time, chose grace instead. I don't know if they see my skills. Thank God my roommate pays the bills. That's how I get down, no shame in mine. A straight up bum like me is hard to find. He's hard to beat, he was mine. Hard to find, hard to find, hard to find. Did you miss your hug today? Or did the walls close and before the doors could separate? Elevator stuck, free fall without the cable straight. Coffee cold, no cream, no perk, just another face. Clock watching me like I owe a time back. Desk asking questions, I don't like the answer fast. Paper stacks tall like they blocking my past. Sticky notes yelling productivity in my past. Streaming ads, no signal, no rhyme in the feed. Just buy this now, anxiety is sponsored by greed. I stare in my hands like damn these lines. Fingerprint futures erased by the grind. Maybe today's the day I crack in the stall. Lock the door, let the echo hear it all. But now, can't leak good on the blouse. They might mistake me for something expendable. Smile stitched tight, posture presentable. Chest straight back like a warning sound. I sit real slow like the floor might fall down. Ain't nobody clapping, no drums, no hands, just keys tapping Morse code demands. Shouldn't there be praise for surviving the shit? Showing up numb, but still clocking the wrist. My job, my gig, my labor disguise. Call it what you want, I'm still selling my time. Pay just enough to stay quiet and sane. Underqualified but fully trained in the game. When pressure hits, I take laps in the maze. Always know me by first name. I'm a team player with escape out strong. Mapping exits while the meeting drones on. This hustle got layers like sedimentary guilt. Smile on the surface, panic in the sill. Water cooler small talk, yeah I mastered that. What you do last night? I dodged the facts. I went nowhere, laid flat, stared at the dark. Set 3 alarms, still missed the mark. Hit breakfast late like rebellion light. I could have been on time, chose peace for the fight. They don't clock skills, they clock compliance. Thank God friends pay due, share reliance. I get down quiet, no shame in the slide. A straight up ghost and a necktie. Nobody's clapping, and that's understood. I didn't come here to be seen as good. I came to disappear between tasks and blame. Do my job, collect silence, repeat the same. Do ways. But nobody's clapping, no standing ovation. Shouldn't there be praise? But nobody's clapping. I know I should ask for a raise for doing my job, doing my job, doing my job. It's fine. I didn't do it for the claps anyway. Anyway.
Now, let's zoom out. Not just from music, not just from art, not just from your personal experience. Let's zoom all the way out. Because what you're doing when you sit down to create, it's not new. It might feel personal. It might feel isolated. It might feel like something only you are dealing with. But the pattern itself, it's ancient. Across time, across cultures, across belief systems. across philosophies, there is a recurring idea that shows up over and over again, that before anything takes form, there is chaos. Not necessarily chaos in the sense of destruction, but chaos in the sense of undefined space, unshaped potential, a state where everything could be something, but nothing is being decided yet. And then something happens. Something begins to take shape. Something starts to organize. Something moves from possibility into form. Now, depending on where you look, people describe this differently. Some describe it scientifically. Energy organizing into matter. Patterns forming from randomness. Systems emerging from complexity. Some describe it philosophically. Order arising from disorder, meaning being assigned to experience. Structure being imposed and undefined. Some describe it through story, through creation narratives, through origin stories, through metaphors that attempt to explain how something becomes something. But no matter how it's described, the pattern is the same. Chaos and structure. Now here's why that matters. Because when you sit down with an idea that doesn't make sense yet, you are not doing something unusual. You are stepping into a process that mirrors the way things have always formed. That confusion you feel, that uncertainty, that lack of clarity, that I don't know what this is yet feeling, that's not a problem. That's the environment. That's the beginning state. And the mistake people make is thinking they're supposed to skip that part. They want the clarity without the confusion. They want the finished version without the shaping process. They want structure without having to sit in the chaos. But it doesn't work like that. It has never worked like that. And it will never work like that. Because structure is not given. It is formed, and formation requires engagement. It requires attention. It requires time. It requires interaction with something that doesn't yet behave the way you want it to. Now let's bring that back to something you can feel. Think about the last time you started working on something and it just wasn't there yet. The idea felt weak, the direction felt unclear, the pieces didn't connect, and for a moment, you questioned it. Maybe this isn't it. Maybe this isn't good. Maybe I should move on. That moment right there, that's the test. Not of your talent, but of your relationship with chaos. Because if your relationship with chaos is weak, you'll walk away. If your tolerance to uncertainty is low, you'll abandon it. If you need immediate validation, you'll never give the idea enough time to form. But if you understand what's actually happening, you start to see that moment differently. You start to recognize this is normal. This is part of it. This is what it feels like before something becomes something. And that changes everything. Because now, instead of resisting that stage, you work with it. You stay with it. You allow it to unfold. Instead of forcing it to resolve too quickly. And that's where patience becomes power. Because in a world that moves fast, in a world that rewards speed, in a world that pushes you to produce, to post, to move on, the ability to slow down and stay with something unfinished is rare, and anything rare has value. Now here's another layer to this, because chaos is not just the beginning of creation, it's also the space where possibility lives. Before something is defined, it can be anything. Before you decide the direction, all directions are open. Before you lock in the structure, You are free, and freedom comes before form. But once you start shaping it, you begin to limit it. You choose this over that. You commit to one idea and leave others behind. That's necessary. That's how structure works. But it also means the chaotic phase is the only phase where everything is still possible. So instead of seeing chaos as something to rush through, you can start to see it as something to respect. Because it's the only time where the idea is still wide open. Now let's connect this back to you as a creator. Every time you start something new, you are stepping into that open space. And what you do next determines everything. Do you rush it? Do you force it? Do you try to make it look finished before it's ready? Or do you give it time to reveal itself? Do you explore it? Do you let it grow before you try to define it? Because the truth is, not everything reveals itself immediately. Some ideas need time. Some ideas need distance. Some ideas need multiple attempts before they show you what they are. And if you quit too early, you never find out. Now let's go one step deeper, because there's a quiet confidence that comes with understanding this process. You stop panicking when things don't make sense right away. You stop questioning your ability. Every time something starts off messy, you stop expecting perfection at the beginning, and instead, you start trusting the process. Not blindly, but knowingly. Because you've seen it before. You've experienced it. You've watched something go from nothing to something enough times to understand the pattern. And once you understand the pattern, you stop fighting it. You start using it. That's the shift. From frustration to awareness. From confusion to recognition. From chaos to structure. And when that shift happens, you're not just creating anymore. You're operating with intention. You're building with understanding. You're shaping with purpose. And that's when your work starts to feel different. Not just to you, but to everyone who experiences it. Because it carries something deeper. It carries the weight of something that was formed, not forced. Now let's bring that back down into something even more practical. Because when you start shaping chaos into something real, you run into another reality. And that reality is this. Not everyone will understand what you're doing while you're doing it.
Damnation. WDMN. Let me tell you something about your body. Oh baby, I love your body. It's so painless. Damnation. Damnation. You got a body like a steel frame, sugar. What's your name? Tell me, can I break your heart 8 times? You know it's true. Damnation. You can read my mind. It can be sharp like a knife, longer than life. Driving a rainless day, it's so painless. It can be sharp like a knife, longer than life. Driving a rainless day, damnation is so painless. You gotta dance like a raving cage, baby. What's your vibe? What's your vibe? Low key, can I take you to where we could hide? Do you wanna come? We can play inside. than a golf course, more silly than a nameless play. It's so painless. It'll be wild like a horse, longer than a golf course, more silly than a nameless play. It's so painless. You got a body like a steel frame, mama. What's your name? You gotta dance like a raving caged baby. Damnation. What's your fire? It'll be so back at night. Ooh, yeah. Longer than light high. So long. While I ring the spin. It's so painless. It'll be wild like a horse. Ready out now. Living a golf course. Keep going. Silly than a nameless play. Damnation. It's so painless. Look at that body. Look at that body. Oh, it's so painless. So painless, painless. So painless. So painless. So painless. Damnation. WDNN. Damnation. 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 So painless. Damnation. 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 Don't it to you? Damnation. 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 The damnation. 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 Damnation.
Now, let's bring it home. Because everything we've been talking about, all of this philosophy, all of this perspective, it lives inside something very real. Music. Not the idea of music, not the image of music, but the actual process. What it takes to go from nothing to something you can press play on. Because if there is any place where structure over chaos becomes undeniable, it's here. Now think about it. Strip music down to its core. Take away the artist. Take away the brand. Take away the visuals. Take away the story. What are you left with? Sound, vibration, frequency. That's it. No meaning, no message. No emotion. Just raw input. And raw input, on its own, is chaos. There is no built-in order, no built-in structure, no built-in direction, just potential. So what happens next? You step in, and you begin to make choices. That's where structure begins. Not when the song is finished, but the moment you decide what belongs and what doesn't. You choose a tempo. Now time has a shape. You choose a key. Now pitch has boundaries. You choose a rhythm. Now movement has direction. You choose a chord. Now emotion has a foundation. And with every decision, you are reducing chaos. Not eliminating it, but organizing it. Now here's what makes this powerful. Because the tools are limited. There are only so many notes, only so many intervals, only so many combinations that feel stable to the ear. You are not working with infinity. You are working with constraint. And constraint is what makes structure possible. If everything were possible, nothing would feel intentional. But because there are limits, your choices matter. And that's where the artistry lives. Not in having unlimited options, but in choosing wisely within the limits you have. Now let's slow this down. You sit down, you open your session, you press a key, you tap a pad, you hit play on something. And what you hear, at first, it's not a song, it's a fragment, a loop, a sound, a moment, and right there, you're back in chaos. Even if you've done this 1,000 times, that first moment is still undefined. So what do? You listen, not casually, not passively. You listen with intention. You ask yourself, what is this? Not in a technical sense, but in a feeling sense. What does it sound like? What does it suggest? What does it want to become? And then you respond. You add something. A kick, a snare, a chord, a bass line. And now something interesting happens. The moment you add something, you've changed the context. That first sound now has a relationship. It's no longer alone, and relationships create meaning. Now that kick isn't just a kick, it's part of a rhythm. That chord isn't just a chord, it's part of a progression. That melody isn't just a melody, it's part of a conversation. And as you keep building, you're not just stacking sounds, you're organizing relationships. That's structure. Now here's where it gets even more important, because not everything you add belongs, and this is where a lot of people get stuck. They think creation is about adding more sounds, more layers, more complexity, but real structure often comes from subtraction, from knowing what to remove, from recognizing what's not serving the idea, from having the discipline to leave space, because space is not empty. Space is intentional. Silence is not absence. Silence is design. When you leave room in a track, you're not doing less. You're allowing what's there to breathe, to be heard, to be felt. And that takes confidence, because it's easy to hide behind fullness. It's harder to stand on clarity. Now let's talk about something else. When a song works, when it really works, it doesn't feel complicated. It doesn't feel forced. It doesn't doesn't feel like it's trying too hard. It feels natural, like it belongs, like it always existed, and you just found it. But what people don't see is how much structure it took to get there. How many decisions were made, how many versions were scrapped, how many elements were adjusted, how many times you listened and re-listened and refined. That natural feeling, that's the result of structure, not luck. Now let's go even deeper, because music does something very specific. It communicates without explanation. You can play a song for someone who doesn't know you, doesn't know your story, doesn't know your process, and they can feel something. That's not accidental. That's structure doing its job. Because you've taken something internal and organized it in a way that someone else can receive. That's the goal. Not just to make something, but to make something that translates. Now bring that back to the bigger idea. Chaos gives you material. Structure gives it meaning. Chaos gives you options. Structure gives you direction. Chaos gives you sound. Structure gives you music. And the balance between those two, that's where your voice lives. Not in total control, and not in total randomness, but in the way you organize what you've been given. That's your fingerprint. That's your identity. That's your sound. Now here's the final layer. Because once you understand this, you stop being intimidated by the beginning. You stop expecting the first idea to be the final idea. You stop judging the early stage like it's supposed to be complete. And instead, you start working. You start shaping. You start listening differently. You start trusting your decisions. And little by little, that chaos becomes something you recognize, something you understand, something you can build with, and eventually, something you can share. Now here's where things shift again. Because once you've built something, once you've structured it, once you've brought it into the world, you run into a new reality. And that reality is this: not everyone hears it the way you do.
I know the impression I'm giving got you wondering what I do for a living. If I told you that I was me, just being me, would that satisfy the preoccupation of your mind? I know I'm not trying to be rude or evasive, I just don't understand the question. Perhaps if you spoke with my people, we all could comprehend where this is going. Anywho, while we wait for so I mean you, why don't you take my key? Park it over there. I won't be that long. By the time I return, in rotation. Tell me will it make vacation station. Monday came in the ghost. By Tuesday, the year is coast. Wednesday, Bentley Azure blue pose. Thursday, Range Rover Sport with the rose. Friday, drive off color and chrome. Sunday, we rest, but we still flex tone. Talk soft, but on our zone. Valet like who that? We just nod and smile. Paper long as patience been grown a while. We ain't flashing, just living proof. Made our own lane and built the roof. No loan, no cosign, just credit that sink. From demo to sink, every file got bling. Double up streams like stocks of dawn. Tim drop beats, Willa slide songs on. We ain't made millions, not yet, but soon. I drive so clean, it got its own tune. We ain't made millions, not yet, but soon. I drive so clean, it got its own tune. We equal luxury, quiet but loud. Studio to showroom, we stand out the crowd. 5 figures in metadata, 6 in spin. 7 days of grind for 8-figure wins. We don't do look at me, we do take notes. Every track we drive a different kind of quote. Bentley keys jingle with producer charm. G-Wagon glide like a bass guitar on. Numbers don't lie, they multiply slow. Why you ask why? We just glow, no front and no cap, just quiet gain. Every bar a seat from the grind and pain. We humble with swag, I'm modest with flair. And if you need the key, park it over there. Park it over there. But anywho, while we wait more, so I mean you, why don't you take my key? Park it over there. I won't be that long. By the time I return, I'm sure it'll all be worth it. Park it over there. Park it over there. See, we don't have to say who we are, you can feel it. It's the energy we bring when we arrive. Keys in hand, dreams in drive. Park it over there. Park it over
Now, you've taken the chaos. You've sat with it. You've shaped it. You've made decisions. You've built something. And from your perspective, it makes sense. Not perfectly, not completely, but enough. Enough for you to move forward. Enough for you to believe in it. Enough for you to say, there's something here. But then, something happens. You step outside of yourself for a moment, or someone else steps into your world, and suddenly, what felt clear to you doesn't look clear at all. To them, it looks confusing, it looks repetitive, it looks unfinished. It looks like you're doing a lot, but not actually doing anything. And if you've ever been in that space, you know exactly what that feels like. You're working, you're building, you're refining, and from the outside, it looks like you're stuck. That disconnect, that gap between what you understand and what they see. That's real, and it's one of the hardest parts of being a creator, because you're operating inside of a process that doesn't reveal itself immediately. Let's break that down. When you're creating something, you're making micro decisions, small adjustments, subtle changes, tiny shifts that, from your perspective, change everything. You move a note, you change a word, you adjust timing, you remove a sound, and to you, that's progress. But to someone watching, it looks like nothing changed. And that's where the misunderstanding begins. Because most people are used to visible progress. They're used to steps that can be seen, steps that can be measured, steps that can be explained. ABC done. That's how most systems are designed. But creation doesn't move like that. Creation moves in layers. It circles back. It revisits. It questions itself. It changes direction. It looks messy before it looks intentional. And if you're not inside of that process, it can look like nonsense. Now let's go deeper. Because this isn't just about what people see. It's about how people interpret what they see. When someone doesn't understand a process, they try to make sense of it, using what they do understand. So if they're used to efficiency, they see your process as slow. If they're used to clear outcomes, they see your work as uncertain. If they're used to structure at the beginning, they see your chaos as disorganization. They're not wrong, they're just interpreting your process through a different lens. And if you don't understand that, you might start questioning yourself. You might start thinking, maybe I am doing this wrong. Maybe this doesn't make sense. Maybe I should be moving faster. And that's where a lot of creators lose momentum. Not because the idea wasn't there, but because the perception made them doubt the process. Now let's anchor this in something real. Picture a producer sitting in a session. They've got a loop playing over and over and over again. They're listening, they're adjusting, they're testing ideas. An hour goes by, and to someone watching, it looks like the same thing is happening. Nothing changed, but to the producers, everything changed. The groove shifted, the feel tightened, the balance improved, the energy locked in. That's progress, but it's invisible until it reaches a certain point, and that's the key. Creation is often invisible until it becomes undeniable, and that space in between, that's where the misunderstanding lives. Now let's take this even further, because sometimes it's not just outsiders. Sometimes it's the people closest to you. Family, friends, people who see you every day. They watch you work. They hear your ideas. They see your effort, but they don't experience it the way the world will experience it. They experience it in real time, unfiltered, unfinished. And because of that, it can feel normal to them. It can feel like this is just what you do. Not something special, not something valuable, just your routine. And that can be frustrating because you feel the weight of what you're building, but they don't see it yet, not fully, not until there's some kind of external validation, not until someone else says, this matters. And that's another reality. That's hard to accept, but important to understand. Value is often recognized after structure is complete, not during. So while you're in the middle of building, you might not get the acknowledgement you think you should. You might not get the support you think you need. You might not get the understanding you wish was there. And that doesn't mean you're doing something wrong. It means you're still in the process. Now here's the shift. Once you understand this, you stop expecting everyone to understand your process while you're in it. You stop looking for validation at the wrong stage. You stop explaining yourself to people who aren't inside the work. And instead, you focus on the structure. You focus on finishing. You focus on bringing it to a point where it can speak for itself. Because once it does, once it reaches that level, the same people who didn't understand it before, they see it differently, not because it changed completely, but because it became clear enough to be received. That's the difference. Not everything is meant to be understood in its early form. Some things have to be built first, and once they are, they don't need explanation anymore. They just need to be experienced. And that's where everything shifts. From confusion to clarity, from doubt to recognition, from chaos to structure. Now let's take this even further. Because once something is understood, once it is accepted, a new question shows up. And that question is this: what actually makes something good?
Spinning, but the miles feel gone. Leaving you behind is harder than I planned. Loved you for a moment, but you're taking my hand. You're leaning close, say baby stay. Blame it on flights being delayed, but I see a sparkle in your little game, and I don't think I can walk away. Say no when it feels it's right. It's as tempting as homemade love at night. Baby, who's turning down a piece of your pie? Over and over again, a piece of your pie. Louis Vuitton talking back like my best friend, telling me, girl, don't let this night end. Sneaking round windows like I'm on the run, but I'll risk it all for one more taste of fun. Don't let it end. You flash that smirk on your perfect face. Every goodbye turns to an embrace. Packing my bags just don't hold the same weight. Baby, I'm yours and I'm already late. Over and over again, this is how we give in. Everything lines up the minute I'm leaving town. Tell me who could say no when it feels this right. It's as tempting as homemade love at night. Baby, who's turning down a piece of your pie? So I say no, then you say cool, but I can stand watching sadness in you. I don't even know if you meant it, love, but I'm tangled and I can't get enough. No, cool. I ain't pressed, but you got that heart like Fort Knox. Every smile, every glance got me chained in your lockbox. Whisper me sweet like a secret you hide, then slide a fork over, give me a piece of your pie. Temptations are high, away with curves I can't steer. Your kitchen light glowing like a runaway deer. Say you're only kind cause my flight got delayed, but every goodbye ends up being a stay. Your perfume's cold, I can't ever decrypt. Your hands serve sugar while your lips taste whip. A little homemade love, a little southern disguise. Tell me who could turn down a piece of your pie. I'm 10 steps ahead like my thumb on a chess clock, but your smile keeps spinning wheels that don't stop. I left my bags packed, thought I'd head out tonight. Now I'm lost in your kitchen, candle soft light. You don't need Wi-Fi for the way you entice. Real love don't need 5G to feel nice. You pour iced tea slow like a secret you spill while your glances stay. And my heart stands still. Truth be told, if I chilled, I could vibe with your way, but you're mixing up spells like a queen of the rave. No charger inside, but my battery's fine. Your touch is the current, you're crossing my line. So bring that guitar, that piano, that swing, with the names we sing. Damnation think Tim, WDMN, two lush harmonies rising like steam from the stew. I could have been your piece, you reset, you zen, but you dish me dessert, then we start up again. Every plan I had melts like butter on crust. Baby, that's what happens when temptation's a must. Leave it unplugged, let the small talk flatline. Watch the truth light up in the dark of the downtime. No
close this out, just sit with this for a second. Everything we talked about today wasn't about making more. It was about making sense. Because the truth is, you don't need another idea. You need to organize the ones you already have. That's where the power is. That's where the shift happens. Not in chasing something new, but in structuring what's already there. And if you've been listening closely, you already know we're not finished. This is just the first layer. Because once you understand structure, there's still another level to this. How it moves, how it connects, how it lives outside of you. And we're going to get into that next time. So until then, take what you've got and build with it. Don't wait. Don't overthink. Don't sit on it. Structure it, because that's the difference. Shout out to everybody building something real. Shout out to the creators still in the process, even when nobody sees it yet. Shout out to the ones choosing consistency over chaos every single day. WDM Nation Media. We're not just creating, we're structuring. Shout out Uncle E. Shout out Code 3 Records. Shout out to everything with potential that hasn't been fully realized yet. Keep going, because unfinished doesn't mean unworthy. It just means it's still in the process. This is why Make Music. Episode 76. Structure over chaos. Part 1. And trust me, we're just getting started. Willa May, out.
We used to stack up notebooks, stack up spirals, black and white compositions. You like the balance for the look. I kept the mistakes just to listen. Cassette tapes, boombox, rewinds. Ideas falling out of time. Couldn't hear it when it started, but something said, keep going. No budget, just imagination showing off. Closet vocals, yeah, that was enough. No polish, just presence, just us. Turning chaos into something we trust. How could you not love? No cost, just creativity showing off. Little room, big sound. We figured it out. We figured it out. Structure over chaos. That's how our dreams survive. Structure over chaos. That's how we stay alive. Alive. Structure over chaos. I'm not gonna lie, it wasn't written in dreams, just lyrically discontent, pulling at seams. Now it's downstream, but what does it mean? If you never build what you believe, but what if you always knew the light needed something to move through? Even the dark had a place to play, but structure showed it the way. Structure over chaos. That's how we stay alive. La, lead me to rhythm. Keys that open doors. Now I live in them. 6 strings talk like they understand. 4 on the bass, put it in my hands. So tell me what a dream could be if you never gave it consistency. If you never shaped what you began, would it die or just expand? over chaos.